Welcome to the Conscious Living Podcast, conversations to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. An uplifting and inspiring series of conversations and talks with your host, Jackie Woodside. We are educating minds, empowering lives, and enlightening souls to create a world where love prevails. In this engaging podcast, we deliver exciting, positive, transformative talks and teachings designed to elevate your life. Now, let's join our host, Jackie Woodside, for this week's session.
Hi, everybody. Jackie Woodside here. Thank you for joining me again for another fabulous episode of the Conscious Living Podcast, where we are here with a firm commitment to educate, empower, and enlighten our world. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. And I'm just so excited to bring forth someone who's an extraordinary coach and teacher and a student of mine, but someone who I really appreciate most of all being able to call a dear friend. So I am happy to bring Melisa Keenan to the Conscious Living Podcast. Melisa is a teacher, educator, a coach, and a confidant to powerful female millionaire powerful CEO millionaires who are wanting to use their feminine power to elevate their world. So, Melissa, I'll let you go ahead and expand on that. But thank you so much for your time and energy, your wisdom and knowledge that you'll be sharing with us today on the Conscious Living Podcast.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Jackie.
Yeah. So tell our listeners a little bit more about your journey and how you got to this very specific and I must say really fascinating niche of working with being a confidant to millionaire female CEOs. Tell our listeners about that.
Yeah, I started out, as any young, uneducated business owner, coach, just coaching anyone who would say yes. And, but the more and more that I got down this journey, the more I found that the particular experiences that I had really resonated with high-powered businesswomen. And that thrilled me and also probably scared me a little bit in the beginning because I spent my 20s as a stay-at-home mom. But what's fascinating about that, we stereotypically think of stay-at-home moms as like super feminine. That was an area of my life when I was probably in the most masculine energy ever. Because being a stay-at-home mom, that thing as a role has nothing to do with feminine energy or our divine feminine. That's a cultural sort of stereotype or thing that we've globbed on to meaning something about being feminine.
I'm so curious, if you don't mind. Yeah. Did you want to go a little further? But I already have questions for you. But
I love it. Yeah. It's like we can break it all down. That thrills me. I love working with these high-powered women because the more and more that I have unlocked these parts of myself, the more I have found I'm very capable. I am very powerful. I have a lot of gifts to share with the world, and I can do so with really connected and beautiful and fulfilling relationships by my side. And I want to see that for these really high-powered businesswomen because I have yet to meet a businesswoman who didn't have a really soulful, heart-centered, deep why of what she was doing in the world. Like women automatically were like, we want to help people. And it's meaningful. It's not just, let me create this little thing, that nobody really needs. I'm going to create it anyway. It's like, she wants to serve powerfully. So helping her experiencing fulfillment in her life is just really lights me up.
Oh, so great. So what do you mean for our listeners? And maybe we've got men listening. So how can you embrace this whole notion of feminine power? Does that mean that that's something that men don't have? And what does it mean? And how do you use it in your work?
So I think it's very important that we pull apart the different connotations and associations that we've made around feminine and masculine, how that pertains to gender, how that pertains to society. So I break this down that there are 3 definitions of feminine. And in these definitions of feminine, none of them have anything to do with gender, actually. associations, but really not. So the first feminine is cultural feminine. We have said that that's typical for women, right? And cultural feminine is different, varying in whatever culture you were brought up in. And it typically comes with some pretty damaging boxes and associations. Brene Brown did a great study, maybe 10 years ago, that found that still, even in our day and age, just 10 years ago, women felt that they, to be a good woman, they needed to be small, meek, quiet. And the final one was do it all and never let them see you sweat.
Oh boy.
I know. Don't you want to just vomit hearing that?
Yeah.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
So that would be, your typical American association with what it means to be feminine. She's small, meek, quiet, soft-spoken, doesn't take up too much space.
Right.
She's a stay-at-home mom. She loves to vacuum and cook. We have all of these.
Oh, that's so 1960s.
And yet it's still so present. It's fascinating. So what I tell people to ask yourself is, women in particular, ask yourself what you've always believed it meant or were taught that it meant to be a good woman. Because that's such a toxic phrase. It's just terrible. Like, you are good because you exist. That goes for men or women. Like, you are innately good, and just for being, you are worthy. But we were brought up like, okay, this is what it means to be a good woman. And you could ask yourself as a man too, what was I taught that it means to be a good man? And it's so important to do that work, because we can list out, okay, here's all the things I saw my mother doing, or my church community women doing, or my teachers and mentors doing, that I took in to mean this.
Right.
And then you can ask yourself, do those things even align with me anymore? Like, do I even, do I actually believe that's what it means to be a good woman or a good man or not? Because now I am a woman and you are a woman, and we get to define what that means to us.
Yeah. I remember a few years ago, I was in a salon, a hair salon, getting my hair done. It was at a mall that I just walked into. And I looked around me, and there were all these like young, really tiny, thin women that were dressed in ways that I don't dress, I guess would be the easiest way to say it. And I just looked, and I remember thinking to myself, it was a very vivid experience. I remember thinking to myself, if that's female, if that's feminine, then what am I? And it really gave me this pause. And, I think gender fluidity is kind of a thing today. And I was thinking that it seems to me, women have such a broad spectrum of how you can express being a woman or being expressed feminine, where men seem to have this fairly narrowly conscribed way of being a man, or how they can express and present as a man. I remember that experience, but it sounds like that's a little bit of what you're talking about here, and how we express our feminine energies is really open to our own creation and interpretation. Am I hearing you right?
So yes, it absolutely is. And I think when I give my other two definitions, it will start to form a bigger picture.
Okay.
So first is breaking away from the cultural parts that we don't want, and then embracing the parts that we do want. And again, like, that can be whatever gender you are. The other definition of feminine is feminine energy. And people are talking about this and the third, divine feminine, all the time. And I think that we're very confused about what it means. Feminine energy, I refer to as the yin and yang. So it's the yin. Yang is masculine, yin is feminine. These are energy principles that have existed for thousands of years in ancient traditions, and have been passed down. And so when we talk about this, we each as human beings have the masculine energy and the feminine energy dancing within us. And then they also play part in every relationship that we're in. However we show up, we almost always will find somebody to match us in the